Hey Sam,
John, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for doing this. Going to put the world of pay-per-click advertising to rights in the next 20 minutes or so.
Oh my gosh, that's the plan, right? No, thank you so much for having me, and excited to chat all things PPC.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, tell everybody who you are, what you do. Fire away and then we can kind of dig into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Sam Sherman. I am one of the co-founders at Socium Media. It's a New York City-based agency, and we focus on performance marketing, which really, at the end of the day, for what we focus on, is encompassing paid search, paid social. We do a little bit of performance creative and the actual design process with the ads themselves, SEO as well. But everything we do is very focused on that direct response, getting people to either fill out that qualified lead or drive transactions and revenue and new customer acquisition. It's been a fun ride. We're a team of 45-ish, and
That's a big
um,
team.
yeah. Thank you for saying that. We went out to dinner with a colleague the other day, and I mentioned how we're a team of 45. They're like, "Oh wow, you guys are really small." And I'm like, "Man, it doesn't feel that
No.
way. I feel like a camp counselor a lot." No, it's been a fun journey so far.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk shop here.
Yeah. Pay-per-click ads, I mean, they've been around for a while, been around forever. And it seems to me nowadays that it's just a Canva template. Just give me a Canva template. Let me just load up some stuff on it and push it. Do you think we should spend a little bit more time, or do you think the churn is so great now that we need to create so much content so fast that it doesn't really matter? We just use Canva.
Yeah, no, that's a tough balance. I mean, reality is your Googles and Facebooks are trying to make it so that uh, really anyone can build ads and sell. How to do that is just to make it really easy for the actual advertiser to dish out ads. And I think we've seen a little bit of that. There's also that just overarching shift of the TikToks of instant gratification, being able to just see something in a matter of seconds, flip to the next piece of content that I think has kind of converted us to thinking uh, you're interested or you're not, and you know that in the snap of a finger. So the Canva template is people are relying a little bit more on that, just because it's so hard to iterate. For us specifically, we're trying to think of uh, well, there's a balance. So iteration has always been a thing, as we all know. But for us, especially within like your Facebook world, we're thinking of more like big swings and just overall content pillars and key messaging. We can think first of what's resonating from a messaging standpoint and a theme, and then iterate off of there and find ways to maybe churn out content there. But the actual bigger concept of these big marketing pillars, I think, are very much still a thing.
Does creativity matter anymore? Does it? I mean, digitally, on the digital side, does it matter anymore? The reason I say that is because you can, you only need to look at a HubSpot article, don't you? It's like, jump links at the top. We've got a big hero image, a nice big SEO title. And it's all very, very formulaic, incredibly formulaic.
It is.
And the creativity is not really there. It's just same old, same old, same old. The argument, I suppose, is to say, well, it doesn't matter if it's creative or not. As long as it meets the goal and it sells something and it gives me a lead or it sells a product, well, the hell, it doesn't matter if it's creative or not, does it? Just sell me something.
No, I mean, definitely a couple years ago, if I think about Meta before this whole 14.5, iOS 14.5 update, didn't really matter what you threw up there from an ad standpoint. It just seemed like you could let it rip and Facebook would figure out and find those consumers. And then it started to, as the journey went on, people were like, oh my God, like I can't just set my targeting levels and make this happen with a lousy ad. Now I do have to actually think a little bit more creatively. And I'd argue, again, like back to that kind of like big swing piece, you kind of have to. I think the marketer is actually coming back in a sense where you're forced to think of different ways to get to that consumer. That really, we probably took a good 4 or 5 years of sitting on the back seat, allowing the algorithms to do what they needed to do. And it's actually, I'd argue, a big shift towards the people that are winning out there are actually the ones that are thinking a little bit more creatively. And it's kind of going oddly against the grain as a what we've had to be accustomed to in the past.
Yeah, because out of home at the moment is really creative. I think it's more creative than it's ever been. It really is. I mean, we've got those giant 3D visual boards, haven't we, in Piccadilly Circus in London, Times Square in New York, and they look amazing. And I think it was mentioned just before we started recording, I was walking through London a few weeks ago, and there was a car sticking out the side of a billboard, an entire car, and there was smoke coming out of the tailpipe, but it was for an car insurance company. This is amazing creativity. This is wonderful. But digital doesn't seem to get that type of attention, does it?
No, it doesn't. That stuff is very creative. And for us, it's always been, at least for myself, foundationally, I've always been more of why I've enjoyed paid media is you put dollars in and you're actually able to see, frankly, in the following day, your efforts pay off from a low funnel, bottom of funnel type of approach. But I'm with you though; those things are pretty cool. There's that Las Vegas sphere now too that we can do different media buys that is a completely immersive experience of even just an ad within Las Vegas. That's goals for me just to be able to see if we can place an advertiser on there, but the prices are a little hefty there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough to measure that kind of stuff though, right?
It is, yeah. Do you think it's because designers are in charge of designing those and marketing folk are in charge of designing digital ads?
Well, it's a tough balance because those designers, they can make some incredible creative ads, but that balance point though is, well, is that actually going to convert that user towards some kind of desired action? And I think that's, maybe from a marketer standpoint, where we need to get is thinking more creatively to maybe not necessarily get to that same level as that designer who's just incredible brain in that front, but being able to tap that part of the brain for ourselves and still think of that other lever of, okay, well, what's the desired outcome here, and where does this kind of sit within the decision process of that consumer as well?
Yeah, and I suppose you can't wait a week for a designer to come up with an ad for Facebook, can you? It's just not. Yeah.
No, well, that's that churn, right? Trying to think of different iterations, and I mean, we're seeing it across the board, right? We're thinking, of course, in this conversation around marketing, but you're seeing this even on like Netflix as an example.
Yeah.
It's more about quantity versus quality, and the user's just jumping on to the next thing, and you got to try to catch them, even if it's not 100% perfectly put together. How can you get them in for that hook for the first couple episodes to then, be able to utilize it a little bit
You're
more
right.
effectively?
I dipped into Amazon Prime for the first time in ages the other night, and it seemed like there were like 100 original movies added in the last month or something. It's like crazy amount of movies that have been added, and it's just churn, isn't it? I mean, all of them get like 3 out of 5 stars or 2 out of 5 stars. Nothing's going to be winning an Oscar, but it's just churn, isn't it?
It's just churn. It's a lot more expensive because you got to try to catch. You just need that one to really hit, and they're just still searching for that one. I just think there are like some interesting parallels between that and marketing within paid media.
Yeah.
Because everything is getting a lot more expensive, right? Like you have to create that content. Dollars themselves are getting a little bit tighter, and making sure that what we're spending is driving towards an action many times than not. It's a tough world out there.
Do you
for
think
us,
if the price went up, the quality of the ads would go up? Do you think we would spend more time on our ads if the price of the click was higher?
That's interesting. The problem is that I think the consumer is just so focused on something new, like that just switch with Instagram Reels or TikTok that, like, you want quality, but I mean, as you have seen, like UGC is actually one of the
Yeah.
best placements out there, and influencer engagement and testimonials actually perform a lot better than that super sculpted kind of commercial style type of ad that you used to put on your metas.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you kind of have to adapt how the market is shifting it in real time, which is always the most exciting and fun, I
Yeah.
guess you'd say, right?
Is is generative AI helping or hindering? Is it making it easier? Is it getting folks into trouble?
You know, as it stands right now, I really don't know if it's doing a tremendous amount for us. I think people are getting a bit inspired. They can think of different iterations for descriptions on Google Ads or your Meta. I just don't think it's necessarily moving those boulders that maybe people are anticipating or wanting. But that said, I mean, I think it is good from like an inspiration standpoint. We use ChatGPT. We have like a paid little subscription with ChatGPT just for inspiration on creative briefing or even just like responses for different client requests. It's by no means do we depend on it for responses in ideation. I'd say it's probably about, we're in the mindset that it's like 80% there to help us and support us to get there. But yeah, ChatGPT, Midjourney, we're doing a little bit from, again, inspiration standpoint on the actual ads that we can create for clients. But I mean, we've seen over the past year tremendous change and improvements on these different platforms, and uh, it's just going to keep getting there.
Yeah.
So it's that mindset of we either jump on board and figure out how we can utilize this to better spend our time most effectively on strategy, or we just have our canes and we say this is wrong. No, we're not doing this. This isn't how it works.
Yeah.
I think this is where the world is shifting, and
Yeah,
we just have to
I think that would be a mistake to
work
do
off it.
that and say no, we're the anti. I think that would be a mistake to do that. I think it is. I mean, is it just ideation you're using ChatGPT and stuff, or is it just the thing, or are you getting it to write some straplines and things for you?
So we're with our SEO team, we do a lot of content and blog writing. We've tried early on just to see how this could look if we're writing it for clients, and we're very open and transparent about that with our clients too. And frankly, the content itself just isn't really there yet. And frankly, also on that note, Google just came out with an algorithm update to basically identify uh, like like AI
Yeah.
written content. So they're cracking down on that too, which we love. We've actually positioned ourselves on the SEO side as writing the content ourselves that we're really proud of. But it does give us some inspiration on different themes to write about for a given client, or helping to identify. We actually set up a GPT to scrape websites to identify, what are the H1 tags on the site? What are the meta descriptions? Are they in the correct uh, character limit as well? So that helps from just like a technical SEO audit as well. So there's a bit of embracing on it, but and there's ways that you can definitely leverage it, but it's definitely not going to be that end all be all for us,
Are you using it at all
at
on?
least right now.
Yeah, are you using it at all on the reporting side? Because this is one thing which I don't see an awful lot of movement on the AI side of things. Because I mean, the one thing AI can do, the machine learning can do, is calculate things really quickly. And the one thing marketers hate is reporting, right? They hate a spreadsheet, right? So it's kind of the two things together should be a perfect world, shouldn't they? But I don't see a lot going on there.
We've tried, we've tested with it. I think we've definitely done some analyses of like, are there correlations between, conversions and like impressions or something like that. Just two kind of metrics that maybe you wouldn't always find a correlation to, but when we upload a raw data file into a chat GPT model, it can give us some different R analyses for it. Um, that said, I'm with you. Maybe the short answer is we're just not there yet. Maybe that's why we're not really seeing a lot of it. What we're trying to do at Socium, and there's a lot of things we're trying to do, but something that we're thinking through is where do our account managers spend a majority of their time and a lot of their time? And one of them is just on insight writing. And insight writing is par for the course. You have to do it. You have to make sure that you're answering the why, but ultimately, those hours that people are spending throughout a given week, what could we do if that's actually spent on strategy? And we're trying to build a model that ultimately we can spit into ChatGPT or a different similar type of model or a similar type of platform, and it'll give us appropriate insights so that we can still incorporate that within our reports or within our weekly agendas, but really we're able to spend more time just thinking strategically in that creativity point that John, we were kind of talking about at the beginning of our session here, is super important. And how can we tap that brain a little bit more sometimes when we're so heavy in the weeds?
Yeah. How are you finding the image generation? You mentioned you use Midjourney. How is that? Has everybody got like 7 fingers or something and 9 toes? Or
Midjourney's pretty wild. So we're fairly new in there, and the actual use case to it, I think there's different stages of consideration process for any platform. And right now we're in the sandbox playing around stage, just understanding how it actually works. And then maybe the second point is actually thinking through business use cases. So we're having some fun with just making some very weird prompts and seeing if it's able to generate. And with Midjourney specifically, it's a lot, in my personal opinion, it's a lot stronger to build a very realistic type of ad than we're also using like Microsoft Image Creator.
Yeah.
I'm probably butchering.
That's quite good, that is, isn't it? It is quite good. Everything looks cartoony in a way.
Oh yeah.
Right. But it is quite
But
good.
maybe that's the. Oh yeah. Hey, I made my free. I make banana peppers in the summer for my garden here, and I made a nice banana pepper logo, and I'm building a nice little small family. No, I'm not building another business. I'm just giving my banana peppers away in mason jars, but I have a nice little logo of Sam's Banana Peppers that people are able to enjoy. And yeah, I made that logo off of ChatGPT, off of that image creator, and it's only going to keep getting better. But it's again very much in that like sandbox stage for sure.
Yeah. So somebody said to me on an episode of the pod ages ago, they said that if you asked Midjourney or any ChatGPT to come up with a logo for a sports shoe manufacturer, they wouldn't come up with a tick. Because you just wouldn't, would you? You just wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, the prompt piece is very important for sure. Like whenever we you kind of have to set the stage for this robot to be like, okay, you are one of the top marketers in the country and you are very focused on X, Y, and Z. And this opportunity just came. So you kind of have to like give a little bit of that inspiration. And again, I think we're 80% there in some of the responses, but it's fun. Reality is that we've been exposed to algorithm changes and automation as a whole for over a decade. And this whole generative AI piece has made it a little bit more mainstream for a bunch of industries. But reality is that we're we've been exposed to this and we're kind of like nodding our head like, yep, I know, it's pretty crazy, right? Like, welcome to our world that we've been dealing with.
Yeah.
So it's just thinking of different iterations there.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention whilst I've got you on is about ad blockers, because this is something that I think is a growing trend. I certainly use one. I don't see an ad. I built websites in 1995, so I filled every single space with something. Every square millimetre of the screen had a flashy GIF. And it almost seems nowadays when you, particularly in big mainstream media type, huge media organisation websites, it's basically like walking through Blade Runner, isn't it? With all the ads, just ads absolutely freaking everywhere, flashing at you. No wonder we're using ad blockers. Do you see this trend continuing? Do you see it becoming a problem?
No, I hear you. We sometimes are randomly looking at, like what's the weather, solar eclipse, what time does it hit our area that just recently was going on? And of course, you go to these websites, next thing you know, you get bombarded with all these different display ads. Yeah, I mean, I think the core concept to start is really people just don't want to be tracked, right? So they're parading around different websites and they're just concerned, understandably so, that their information and what information is just getting picked up. I think, from a programmatic display side, is from a vendor standpoint, they're in tough waters. But my hot take, and I don't really know if it's necessarily a hot take, is good, like understandably so. Like programmatic display has been kind of a weird, funky area where you get many times charged for driving false clicks or what's considered a view through conversion model, and you're spending a lot of money there that it's just kind of hurting the overall budget, and some of the legacy marketers on the client side still want a little bit of that programmatic display in there, but I think those vendors are going to be forced to be a lot more direct response focused. On the Google Meta side, there's server side tracking, there's client side tracking.
Yeah.
So client side tracking are those pixels that we're talking about, and not really serving those. But on the server side, that's like your conversion API type of models that are being used. Those are pretty strong and really good. The only the website owner really has control of that, and that's being able to be utilized for bidding algorithms. And I think that on my side of the coin, where the paid marketing outside of programmatic comes in, we'll be just fine. And I actually really appreciate the server side tracking and also the ad blocking. I totally get it. I'm in the mindset of, if I'm searching for something on Google, I want to be hit with a positive experience, and I'd like to believe that the ads that we're pushing will help that user get to a deeper page on a website to actually get them to the experience that they want. But some of these other vendors out there and display vendors can be a bit in your face and not really aligned with what I'm trying to experience on the site.
Yeah.
So I get the increase there, but I think server side tracking will always hold suit there too.
Yeah, I think that folks sort of like look at the extreme tracking things which go on. There was something I saw a couple of weeks ago where it said that, I can't remember which website it was, but it loaded up like it was 700. I think it was 772 individual different trackers were launched by this website. It just sent the data off everywhere, just to everybody. And folks think that everybody's doing that, but everybody isn't doing that, because most people I talk to on a day-to-day basis just want to work out if their ad made a sale or not.
Yeah, instant gratification. That's why that's what I love, and yeah, it's as good as it's bad, as opposed to, I mean, people can get completely overwhelmed or just completely fixated on a certain trend, and one of those could be ad tracking and I guess user tracking. So at 700 plus, it's a big number, but at the same time, I'm just not surprised that there's probably thousands of websites out there that go in on that, and they're going to have a hard thing coming. But until then, I mean, it's also not necessarily the brands that we work with either. So it's kind of it's good for the user experience if those types of, for the user that's being on Google and trying to have a nice experience within Facebook, TikTok, that to push those websites down, it's just not really it's just not the right experience.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I could chat for ages about this, because the PPC world is like it's do it yourself, isn't it? But it's like so freaking complicated and hard. You really shouldn't do it yourself, should you?
Well, that's the like, I kind of going back to the original point of our session. It's like they're trying to make it easy for everyone to do, but it's actually making it more complex in many ways. And the I think digital agencies will always be around in some capacity. They have to be, and hopefully they're shifting to more of a strategic lens that these algorithms and these machines will allow us to do. So I love that part of it, but it's a weird one. You said you were building websites in the mid to late 90s. I actually was.
They were beautiful.
I'm a little younger, but I was building those websites too in the mid 90s with my Angel Fire and Lycos, and it's been quite a wild transition of how everything's going down now. But reality is, it's going to be completely different in a couple of years as well. And how do you adapt?
Yeah.
And that's the name of the game that I've accepted at this point.
So if I had to ask you to kind of guess how much ad spend was wasted, what percentage would you put on that?
Oh man, at Socium or in the?
No, not with you,
No,
'cause obviously you know what you're doing.
no, I'm just totally
But
messing.
like,
No. I mean,
on
there's
average,
the definition of the definition of wasted is obviously very different as well.
average marketing team sort of thing. Were in the office. How much running their own ads? How much do you think they waste?
Oh, I'm sure it's like 40, 50%.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, we've accepted that you kind of have to throw yourself out there with different keywords and whatnot to identify what's working. And if we're in a 15% of a quote unquote wasted spend, you'd argue it's not necessarily wasted because we're figuring out what's working, what's not. But I'm sure it's. Do you have that number handy, John?
I don't know, but I asked lots of people it, and I had
Okay.
I somebody yesterday say 70, reckon 70%. But I asked the question a lot because I think it's fascinating because I did read somewhere ages and ages and ages ago where somebody at Google whistle blew, or somebody who used to work at Google mentioned that they reckoned it was about 60% of all of Google ads, and then Google was there saying no, of course not, because it's basically their profit, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine if their revenue, imagine if all the ads worked and their revenue went down. I mean,
Oh man, I wish the ads worked. We'd spend more. I promise. If you're listening here, I wish our ads worked even better than they do because I promise you we'll spend more.
Yeah.
But no, I could very easily be converted to persuaded rather if I spoke to that person that said 70%. There's a lot of waste out there.
there is, yeah.
It's a matter of what you do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hire somebody to run it for you is what I say, because way too complicated. Sam, thanks ever so much for your time. Tell everybody, where's your website again? Where's Socium? I love the name, by the way. It's a great name, that, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Well, just if you don't mind, just quick backstory on the name Socium. We just celebrated our 5th year anniversary, but Socium in Latin means partner.
Oh, cool.
And I had been running my own consultancy before, along with my business partner running his own separate consultancy. And finally, about 2 years in, each we were like, hey, why don't we just... We were getting some leads that were a little bit too big for us, and we were like, hey, can you join in? Can you help partner with me on this? And I guess the first step is finding if there's a domain name available for some different names you're thinking through, and Socium was available. Come to learn 6 months in, Socium actually is pronounced Socium in Latin, but we're in a little too deep. Yeah. But no, it's the idea of partnership with Owen and myself, but more importantly, the partnership that we try to instill as with our clients, that we're not just a vendor. But that was my bit of a rant. But John, yeah, our website
I
is
reckon most
Socium
people will
Media.
probably think it's just something to do with social media, don't they?
Well, we learned that about the first weekend that everyone's like, "Hey, I think you misspelled socialmedia.com." No, it's Socium. But yeah, SOCIUM media.com. We're actually we're coming out with a new website in a couple months here, which we're really excited about. But yeah, any viewer can check that out. Of course, I'm an open book. Feel free to just email me directly, sam@sociummedia.com. I've definitely gotten a little bit more active on LinkedIn as well, so always happy to interact there. But yeah, just a little bit about where people can
Fantastic.
find me in our company.
Brilliant. I'll stick some links in the show notes and folks can tap on those and get to you nice and easily. Sam, thanks ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was such a great conversation.